All right. Ember, I think perhaps a logical place to begin with for this project is addressing the question of whether this is actually an alteration or addition to an existing dwelling. The new works neither add to the existing house or physically alter the existing home. Two additional structures, however, do alter the functionality of the property and have added a highly personalised living, working, eating, cooking and bathing spaces for my clients Hugh and Leilani, and they use them every single day. For Hugh, it's a space to work, and as Leilani says, for her, it's a space not to work. They preserve intact the original house, and through the siting, create a sequence of indoor and outdoor spaces within the rear garden. The additions solve a highly specific brief, and they did so within a very limited budget. The site is located in a northeastern suburb of Doncaster, an area that saw a lot of single residential development in the 60s and 70s. It's very residential in character still, but with the inevitable creep of McMansions gobbling up smaller homes on leafy lots. The original home is a consolidated home industries design called the Californian, which originated from a Robin Boyd design of a CHA. The plans for the build were issued to Hugh's parents in April of 1964. That's the original drawings there. This was his childhood home. It's the only home he's known. Hugh's parents built the original house as they were inspired by the Australian suburban modernism of Robin Boyd, and they positioned the house on the triangular site facing north with its back to the street, at the time a quite non-standard approach to siting. They then planted the garden with native trees after the work of Edna Walling. When we found it, the backyard was a classic scruffy area with a Hills hoist and groundworks of an old outbuilding made of convict bricks, which we salvaged and used in the project. It was already the site of a few DIY projects that Leilani and Hugh had completed, including outdoor bathing and multiple fire pit locations. Hugh and Leilani were truly enlightened clients and collaborators in the design process. Hugh has spent many years, as is Hugh, thoroughly restoring the original house, including the Western Red Cedar weatherboard cladding. The briefing for the project was lengthy and very detailed. In fact, I'd say the scale of information provided was inversely proportional to the scale of the project. Through the briefing and pre-design phase, we just had lots of chats and discovered a number of areas of common ground and interests and influences, which formed part of the design dialogue. And there's a few surprising texts that I found on their coffee table. One in praise of shadows, and the other a pattern language. So a lot of the conversation was engendered by discussing around those books. Another common area of reference was traditional tea houses of Japan, and in particular the ones found in the garden space of the Nezu Museum in Tokyo. This collection of traditional structures that have been relocated and placed in close proximity to each other are set within a garden setting. Conceptually, our idea was similar. Create two separated forms that are similar to each other in form and material, but differed to each other by way of height, rotation, and footprint. The two studios are located in the rear corner of the site, an area that was not previously landscaped. We wanted to create an adjacency to each other, so that the doors of each studio face each other, but also allow the garden to flow through between. The studios needed to recede into the garden and not dominate the original home. And through this siting, we needed to create a private outdoor area with a kitchen and open fire to cook over. It's Leilani. Leilani's studio. She talked about creating an empty room that is beautiful because of the play of light and shadows, reflections and materials. She wanted a room that invited you to just lie on the floor if you want to, but with a few simple changes it could transform into different spaces. By adding a chair, it becomes a contemplative space. A second chair with cushions, it becomes a place to talk. With a yoga mat, it becomes a studio, and she has these drums. It becomes a practice space, a place to listen to music. They can pull a futon from the cupboard, and it becomes a gentle place for friends and family to sleep in. But most importantly, it's a space for thinking about work, but not doing work. A being space rather than a doing space. Hugh's studio, on the other hand, is a dedicated workplace for digital illustration and a library of small objects and a workshop. This was his previous space that was in the undercroft of the house with about a 2050 clearance, which is pretty tight for a guy that's about 2.1 high. There's plenty of legroom, which which it needs, and lots of headspace. There's also no light interference because he does his work on a Wacom illustration tablet. He has access to books, objects, art materials and small tools, and a carefully located stained red glass window onto the original house. It offers a journey to work away from the house and distractions. The gap between the studios centres on an established eucalypt, the central feature of the garden. This also allowed views through to the corner of the house and a contraction and extension of space as you pass between them. This space becomes that shared threshold. Views between the house and studios are carefully controlled so neither is ever fully apparent to the other. And the Japanese influence of the design of the studios also connects and reference the influence of Japanese architecture on Robin Boyd. This is the space to the rear, which creates a communal cooking space. So it's cooking not in like a barbecue, but actually like a pot over trivets on this very complicated cooking platform. A key part of the design was the very limited palette of materials. Materials were selected, reduced to a minimum, and wherever possible, anything that gave an indication of scale was either eliminated or located out of view. The two key materials are the cedar fins, which appear as roof forms, but are in fact rain screen inclined walls, rain screen walls, and they'll grey off over time, or maybe not, depending on Hugh's vigilance. The other timber is a charred timber cladding that has an intense black character, but also reflective qualities, and seeks to allow the garden by Sam Cox to be foregrounded. So this is Hugh and Leilani sitting on the threshold of their respective studios, singing to each other. I'm joking. That's how they roll. Previously, when I've spoken about this project, I've said the designs are like two structures that have gone back to the back of the garden to play out of the view of others. They have a sense of play and personality in the relationship with the original house and with each other. And in a way, that's how it sort of feels about Hugh and Leilani themselves. Thanks.